Imagine living inside a towering stone castle, surrounded by thick walls, guarded gates, and echoing halls. From the outside, medieval castles looked powerful and magnificent symbols of kings, knights, and epic battles. But behind those heavy wooden doors existed a quieter world that history rarely talks about. A world of women whose lives were filled with secret responsibilities, silent struggles, unexpected power, and sometimes deep loneliness. These women weren't just queens in golden gowns waiting in tall towers. They were managers of entire estates, political negotiators, healers, and artists, and sometimes prisoners of their own noble status. Tonight, we step inside the castle walls and uncover the hidden lives of women in medieval castles. In medieval Europe, castles dominated the landscape like stone giants watching over the land. Built on hills, cliffs, or riverbanks, these massive structures were designed for defense. Thick walls, narrow windows, iron gates, and deep moats made them nearly impossible for enemies to attack. But castles were not only fortresses, they were also homes. And within those cold stone walls lived women whose daily lives were complex. For a noblewoman, life inside a castle began early in the morning. As sunlight filtered through narrow windows, the castle slowly came alive. Servants rushed through corridors carrying water, bread, and firewood. The kitchens filled with the smell of baking bread and boiling porridge. But while servants worked below, the lady of the castle was already beginning her day. She wasn't simply relaxing in luxury. In fact, the lady often managed an entire household that could include dozens or even hundreds of people. Servants, cooks, guards, and visiting guests all depended on her leadership. She supervised food supplies and organized servants' duties. She planned meals for large feasts and ensured the castle's daily operations ran smoothly. In many ways, she functioned as the chief administrator of the castle. And sometimes, her responsibilities went far beyond that. When her husband, the lord or knight, left for war, the lady often became the temporary ruler of the estate. This meant making serious decisions. She could oversee farmland production, collect taxes, and resolve disputes among villagers. In some cases, she even organized the castle's defense if enemies approached. One famous example was Lady Nicola de la Haye, who defended Lincoln Castle during a siege in the early 13th century. Stories like hers remind us that medieval women could wield remarkable authority. But power came with heavy expectations. Most noble women were married very young. Marriage in medieval Europe was rarely about love. It was a political alliance. A girl might be promised in marriage when she was only 12 or 13 years old, often to a man she had never even met. Once the wedding took place, she moved into his castle, leaving behind her childhood home forever. Imagine arriving at a massive stone fortress filled with strangers, expected to immediately act as its lady and manage its people. For many women, this transition was overwhelming. They had to learn new customs and gain the trust of villagers. And above all, they were expected to produce children, especially sons, who inherited land and titles. Pregnancy itself was extremely dangerous. Without modern medicine, childbirth carried a high risk of death for both mother and baby. Many noble women experienced multiple pregnancies, yet not all children survived infancy. Still, motherhood was only one part of castle life. Women also played a key role in education and culture. Many noble women learned to read and write. They often studied religious texts, literature, music, and embroidery. Some women became skilled artists, creating elaborate tapestries that decorated castle walls. These served practical purposes too. Thick woven fabric helped insulate cold stone rooms during harsh winters. Castles were notoriously cold and drafty places. Perhaps the most surprising responsibility involved medicine. The lady of the house oversaw the preparation of herbal remedies. Castle gardens often contained medicinal herbs such as sage, lavender, rosemary, and thyme. When someone became ill or wounded soldiers returned, the noblewoman helped supervise their care. Despite these responsibilities, life could be deeply isolating. Many castles were in remote areas, far from cities. Travel was slow and dangerous. A journey that takes hours today might have taken several days on horseback. Occasionally, traveling musicians or poets arrived. These moments were exciting breaks from the routine. But most days followed a quiet, repetitive rhythm managing the household, praying and caring for children. For some, religion was comfort. Some women eventually chose to leave castle life and enter convents for independence. Yet for most, life continued within castle walls. They lived in a world that could feel both powerful and confining. From the outside, castles symbolized strength. But inside, women navigated a balance between duty and influence. The hidden stories of these women are far from ordinary. They were political players, strategists, and unexpected defenders. They were the heart of the stone giants, shaping the history of medieval Europe from within. Behind the stone walls of medieval castles, power did not always belong only to kings, lords, and knights. Sometimes the most important decisions were quietly influenced by the women who lived inside those walls. While official records of the Middle Ages often focused on male rulers and warriors, historians have gradually uncovered evidence that many noblewomen played subtle, powerful roles in politics and diplomacy. In a world where women were rarely allowed to rule openly, influence often worked through conversation, strategy, and intelligence. And inside castles, women had access to something incredibly valuable: information. Castles were not just homes. They were centers of political activity. Messengers constantly arrived, carrying letters from distant regions. Noble visitors stopped by to discuss alliances, trade, and military plans. Traveling merchants and clergy brought news from across Europe. Within this environment, the lady of the castle was often present during many important discussions. Even when she wasn't speaking openly, she was listening. And listening meant learning. Many noblewomen became highly skilled at understanding political tensions between rival families and kingdoms. They knew which alliances were fragile, which lords could be trusted, and which conflicts were quietly building toward war. Take, for example, the powerful Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine. Living in the 12th century, Eleanor became one of the most influential women in medieval European history. She was first married to Louis VII and later to Henry II. Through these marriages, she controlled vast lands across France and England. But Eleanor was far more than a royal wife. She actively participated in politics, supported military campaigns, and later ruled territories as a regent when her sons were away. Her court became famous for encouraging literature, poetry, and intellectual discussions. Many historians believe she helped shape the culture of medieval chivalry, the code of honor that knights were expected to follow. Yet Eleanor's story also shows how dangerous power could be for women. When political conflicts erupted within her own family, she was eventually imprisoned for many years by her husband after supporting a rebellion. Her life reminds us that influence in medieval politics could bring both prestige and serious risk. But queens were not the only women involved in political strategy. Even lesser-known noblewomen sometimes played key diplomatic roles. Marriage alliances were one of the most important tools for building peace between rival regions. And these marriages were often arranged between noble families who owned neighboring territories. When a young woman married into another powerful household, she became more than a bride. She became a bridge between two families. Through letters and visits, she could help maintain communication between her birth family and her new household. Sometimes, this communication prevented conflicts. Other times, it quietly shaped them. Medieval letters written by noblewomen revealed that many of them were deeply involved in estate management and political negotiations. They discussed land disputes, military threats, taxes, and local conflicts. Some women even acted as regents, meaning they governed lands temporarily when their husbands or sons were absent. This situation happened frequently during the Crusades. When thousands of European knights traveled to the Middle East, many castles were left under the supervision of women. For years at a time, these women managed finances and legal matters. In some cases, they had to organize the defense of the castle itself. Imagine standing on the castle walls, watching enemy banners appear on the horizon, knowing the responsibility rested on your shoulders. There are documented moments when women helped lead defensive efforts. They organized supplies and motivated soldiers. But political influence did not always happen through war. Sometimes it worked through something quieter: education and culture. Inside many castles, noblewomen created environments where knowledge could grow. They invited scholars, poets, and musicians to their courts. This was particularly important during a time when books were incredibly rare and expensive. Before the invention of the printing press, every book had to be copied by hand. Many noblewomen became patrons of manuscript production. Some even learned to write themselves, corresponding with political leaders and religious authorities. Letters written by medieval women have survived for centuries, giving historians rare glimpses into their thoughts and concerns. One surviving letter discusses how she negotiated with local knights to prevent a violent dispute over land ownership. Another describes organizing supplies during a famine to ensure villagers did not starve. These letters reveal something surprising. Women inside castles were not passive observers of history. They were active participants. Yet despite their influence, their stories were often overshadowed by the dramatic battles and heroic legends that filled medieval chronicles. History books written during the Middle Ages were usually created by monks who focused on kings, wars, and religious events. Archaeological discoveries and newly studied documents continue to reveal hidden layers of their lives. Excavations have uncovered writing tools and household records connected to women who managed large estates. These findings support the idea that castle women were deeply involved in administration and economic decisions. Luxury goods like silk, spices, and fine fabrics often passed through castle households. Women supervised these valuable resources. This required both intelligence and financial understanding. And yet, despite all of these responsibilities, medieval society still placed strong limits on women's authority. A woman's power was often tied to her relationship with a male relative, her husband, father, or son. Widowed noblewomen sometimes faced intense pressure from rival families who wanted control of their lands. Some widows successfully defended their rights and continued ruling their estates. Others were forced into new marriages. Life inside a castle was never simple. Behind every elegant feast was a complex network of relationships and expectations. And within that network, women constantly balanced intelligence, diplomacy, and resilience. But politics and power were only part of their hidden world. Inside the private chambers existed another side of life, a world filled with secrets, friendships, and deeply personal struggles. A world rarely recorded in official history. When we imagine medieval castles, we often picture grand banquet halls, armored knights, and powerful kings making decisions that shaped entire kingdoms. But beyond those dramatic scenes existed another world, one that unfolded quietly in private chambers, narrow stairways, and candlelit rooms. This was the world where women spent most of their time. Within these spaces, their lives were filled with emotions, friendships, and secrets. Inside a castle, noblewomen rarely lived alone. Surrounding them was a community of other women who formed the inner social life of the fortress. This included ladies-in-waiting, female relatives, servants, and maids. These women worked, lived, and often slept within the same sections of the castle. Over time, they developed close bonds. For many noblewomen, these companions became their closest friends and a vital circle of trust. A young bride arriving at a new castle, often far from her childhood home, might initially feel isolated and overwhelmed, but the presence of other women helped create support. Together they shared stories and secrets that could never be spoken publicly. Daily life inside the castle often followed a gentle rhythm. Mornings might begin with prayer in the castle chapel. Afterward, women gathered in chambers filled with wooden tables and colorful fabrics. Here they worked on embroidery, sewing, and weaving. To modern audiences, this work might seem simple, but textile work was both an artistic skill and an essential responsibility. Large tapestries could take years to complete. They decorated cold stone walls and helped insulate the rooms against the winter chill. While their hands worked on threads, conversations flowed. They shared news and exchanged information about political events happening beyond the walls. But friendship was not the only emotion. There were also moments of jealousy and rivalry. Castles were places where status mattered deeply. A noblewoman's rank determined where she sat at meals and how others treated her. Ladies-in-waiting competed for attention and favor. Even clothing reflected status. Fine dresses made from silk or velvet were symbols of wealth, arriving through trade routes like the Silk Road. Beneath these elegant appearances, life could be difficult. Many women lived with constant uncertainty. Political alliances could change in an instant. If a husband died, a woman's security became fragile. Some widows maintained control, but others faced pressure to remarry for political gain. Perhaps the most emotional moments centered around family. Children were deeply cherished, yet childhood during the Middle Ages was incredibly fragile. Many noble families experienced the heartbreak of losing children. Despite these tragedies, mothers were expected to remain strong and fulfill their duties. Some found comfort in religion. Daily prayer and charitable acts offered hope and meaning during periods of grief or uncertainty. For a few, religion offered a different path. Some eventually chose to leave castle life and join religious communities or convents. Convents provided a place where women could live independently. They studied scripture, copied manuscripts, and became respected leaders. Yet even within castles, women continued to shape history. They raised the next generation of rulers, teaching them justice, responsibility, and power. While men rode into battle, women kept the household functioning. They ensured food supplies remained steady and communities continued operating. Without this hidden labor, the grand castles that symbolized medieval power could not have survived. Historians are now recognizing these vital contributions. Today, archaeologists study kitchens and personal belongings left behind. These discoveries reveal a more complete picture of castle life. Behind every towering castle wall lived stories of intelligence, resilience, and love. These women were administrators, healers, and defenders of their homes. Their impact shaped medieval society in ways that still echo today. Remember that inside those walls lived far more than kings and knights. There lived women whose hidden lives quietly shaped the course of history. Their legacy remains woven into the very stones of the past.